amazing comments by all of you. And it shows to me the breadth of the consideration and all of your thought processes that have gone into coming up with these comments. I mean, you clearly have all looked at the data, talked to residents, and really are all engaged, which I think is something great about our council right now. We are all in this 110%, and that when we have a city staff who's also working at that same level, it should create a good product for our residents to look at. I am amazed by the survey results, knowing what the city's gone through over the past 10 years. And I'm amazed in a good way. But to see, like Councilmember Abraham just said, when you see the level of support increase with each vote of the people, and then you even see the survey results with an 80%, well, yes, of course, basically, we do a dedicated library millage. That does say that the community has grasped how important it is to have dedicated funding for sustainability of the library, to keep our AAA bond rating in check, and the value of that in our community, in our city, and what that does, and how that actually can save us so much more money at other times when necessary. And you see you just see the level of support and enthusiasm in the amount of surveys that were returned, the people that have offered up their opinions in the focus groups, and you have a community that loves our library. And I think that's really amazing. If I thought we could fund the library responsibly and consistently out of the general fund each year, I would do it in a heartbeat. I think that any one of us would. Nobody here is looking to have a millage just because. If the money was in the general fund, that's where the focus would be. But we've had council members over the past 10 years who have been very diligent about looking for that extra change in the seat cushions, basically, to make this happen in the general fund. And it's never been found. And there's been council members who, and you know what, for fun, and I mean this in all sincerity, Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Teets, Councilmember Fleming, they all were on council with a keen eye towards looking for that extra money in the general fund, and we didn't find it. When I got on council, it still wasn't there. And I want the community to know that people who you value and listen to on certain aspects have looked at this issue a lot over the past 10 years and have tried every way to make it work out of our general fund. But the money is just not there like it was 12, 13 years ago when we had a different property portfolio and the economy was very different. We talk a lot about, the Great Recession of 08 and 09 and what that did. And we hear people in the community today say, but you're doing all this development, you must be flush with cash. And when you look at those numbers, if you just look at the real dollars, you see we're still, I think, at 8% below where we were in 2006, 2007. My years may be off, but forgive me if I am. And if you look at it adjusted for inflation, I think we're about 30% less than where we were. So the money is not there in the general fund to support the library as it did prior to the 2008 and 9 Great Recession. We as a community, I think, have understand that now and accept that. But I always want to put it out there as a reminder to everybody that if the money was there, we'd be going there first, because that's where we budget everything else out of for our city. But it's not. So we do need to have a dedicated millage. That's the fiscally responsible thing to do. It's the most important thing we can do to ensure that we have that world-class library in our city that our residents use and enjoy, that makes us stand out as a community who values reading, community gathering, education, and all of the wonderful things that a library can bring to a city. So we look at, so where does that leave me on a number of things? I do think 10 years is the way to go for duration. I don't think there's we talked, I think at the last meeting, if you do a 5-year, pretty much as soon as it passes and gets implemented, you already have to start looking at the next renewal. And that's a waste of our city management resources. It was just brought up that it's a waste of taxpayer dollars and having to fund these studies and do things like that. And my concern initially with a 10-year was, well, what if there's, a lot of headly issues, and what do we do then? We always have the option as a city or a city council to go back and make adjustments with the vote of the people if we need to. So I'm not as worried about that anymore. I think 10 years is consistent with what other communities of our style and size do. And I think that it will give the voters a good sense of security that they know exactly what their library is going to have for these years. Less Headley issues, but they have a better idea. And frankly, they don't have to worry about it every couple of years when an election comes up. It shouldn't be an issue at this point, in my opinion, whether or not the library millage shouldn't play a factor in our city council elections like it has in the past. I think our community at this point is focused on the value of our library. And if we can take away that political football, I think the community will be better served. So 10 years for me. Like some others, I am extremely torn between 1.0 and 1.1. I'm actually leaning towards 1.0, and for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you those. I love the idea of 1.1, and you see the additional funds it can create for our library and what we could do with those funds. But I look at it a little bit differently. I look at, I think our library needs a major renovation and overhaul, or we even need to consider at some point a new library altogether. And I don't think a 1.1 millage rate, I don't think it will generate the amount of money in the time period we want to do that major renovation. Although it does give us more funds. I think it was about, I don't remember off the top of my head, the slide's not handy, but it'd be several $1 million over 10 years. That is over 10 years. And you're not gonna get that big bang punch of a renovation with those funds at $500,000 a year or even $1 million a year. It's not going to give that kind of wow factor that I think our community would expect if we're increasing the millage rate to this and saying we're going to be able to do some renovations with this. So I think that the 1.1 is not the right answer for our community for that purpose. And in a separate conversation, we do need to look at whether we need a separate renovation bond or some kind of new library bond to do something different for the structure itself. So that's why I favor a 1.0. We get the 7 days that I've long advocated for. We fund it the proper way, not by using general fund dollars at a hodgepodge basis or taking unassigned fund balance that should be used for one-time capital expenses or one-time budget shortfalls. We use it with the dedicated funds. We get the 7 days. We put the library on an operationally secure tact with the funding it needs to have a very good collection, the maintenance it needs, and recognizing that our city budget, we still have capital funds in our city budget that can be used for the library for other capital projects. Nothing prohibits us from doing that. I'm way leaning towards 1.0 as opposed to the 1.1. I don't think we could, with that extra 0.1 millage, I don't think it gives us the renovation funds that our community would expect if we were to talk about, oh, this extra money will give us renovations and such. So I'm far more comfortable with a 1.0 millage. I think if you look back to what the library was originally supposed to be 10 years ago, it was also around a 1.0 millage. That makes sense to have the 7-day library we need in our community. Obviously, 5.5 of you spoke before me saying 1.1 is where you're leaning. So we can look at that. I would also ask, and I think it'd be nice to have both options on our agenda next week, which will give 2 weeks of conversations with residents, and we can hear from the community, let them look at that difference. And it'll also give all of us the opportunity to really take a look. And obviously from a procedural standpoint, even if we only had one option on the next agenda, we could amend it as necessary at the time. But that's where I am. I'm very proud of our library. I'm proud of our library staff and our library director. I think they have worked miracles with the limited funds that they have had over the past several years. And I don't think we can thank Kathy Russ and her team enough for that. The fact that we're having this conversation now and talking about making it bigger and better shows me that we're in a much better place in our community. And that also makes me very happy because I see the joy in some faces on this council who have been through some of the wars in the past. And to see that we're at a place where it seems like we have great community support and a council that's got a cohesive message on this, I think we're in a wonderful place. So with that, city management, does that give you the direction you need coming out?